Curb Dog first come about?
Curb Dog first came about by virtue of the fact myself and Colin were in school together, and we got a school band together for a talent show. You know, well, it was a talent show, a Christmas show.
Yeah.
We were called Roller Coaster, so we did all that kind of stuff. We were playing all these kind of we couldn't play anything actually, but we attempted to play these songs, and then we enjoyed that a lot. And Colin had been messing around with bands, and I'd been messing around with other bands before, and through that we kind of got sort of semi-serious. Myself and Colin then went to college, and Dara, who was the drummer of the band, and we kept going, and we changed the name to Curb Dog because there was a tour going around. Dinosaur Jr. And various other bands, Jesus and Mary Chain, this big tour was going around called Roller Coaster, so we had to change our name, so we changed it to Curb Dog. The reason being, a bunch of guys in California were skateboarders and BMXers, and we were all into that stuff when we were 14-year-olds, and that was it. It was a split decision, and and that's how the band got together. Then we started taking it sort of semi-seriously and writing our own songs. Most horrendous songs at the time. You know, we were much more of an indie band when we started off than a rock band, and that's how it got to that point.
And you got discovered relatively early on. How did that come about?
It was a bit crazy, really. I think we all left college to go on our summer holidays in the summer of
It was June
1991.
June 92.
92, yeah. That June we went into a studio in Dublin, made a demo, spent 2 days in the studio, we saved up to do it, put cassettes together, you know, got yellow paper, photocopied it, sent it out to record labels.
Thought we'd never hear a word again.
Thought we'd never hear a word, and much to our surprise, your phone just kept ringing.
Yeah, every single record company we'd sent to America, you know, Atlantic Records in America, all these, you know, Geffen, all the UK labels like CBS or Island or whoever it was at the time, every single one of them got back to us. We thought we'd never hear a word from anybody, and it was nuts. And within a couple of weeks of sending out the tape, we'd organised a gig in a place called the Pump House in Kilkenny, played a gig there. There was limousines arriving with A&R men from Los Angeles. It was very, very surreal. We played the gig. Next day, got a phone call from a guy from Mercury Records. He met us in Tynan's pub on the bridge in John Street in Kilkenny and offered us a record deal. And we said, thank you very much. In our naivety, he offered us a deal. And he said, oh, I love you guys. You're going to be, we'll commit to you more than anybody else. And we were just like, we have won the lottery here.
Yeah.
So he was there. He made a phone call to his boss, of the head of Universal Records at the time, and said, okay, the boys, we're going to sign the boys, and blah blah blah, bing bang bing bang bing, and we were signed.
That was all in 3 months.
Yeah.
So three months from demo, doing a couple of gigs, and signed. Some people would say it was too quick.
It was.
Maybe it was.
Yeah, it was.
But hey, you're not going to turn an opportunity like that down.
I mean, I assume it must have been quite hard at such a young age. I mean, you were still in your teens, weren't you? I mean,
well, 19, 20.
It must have been quite hard to stay level-headed.
Well, it wasn't about being level-headed. It was more like everything was such a brand new experience, and it was just like being let into a candy shop with you know, let in to do whatever you like. We didn't really lose the heads at all because we had a very strong sense of kind of self-deprecation running through the band as well, and we had a very anti-rock star kind of stance anyway from what what we'd been into for the last 4 or 5 years musically, and what had informed our attitudes towards music and who are our heroes. Really.
I'd even go so far as to say we were self-deprecating to such a degree was probably to our detriment.
Yeah.
In that people expect bands to have at least a little bit of a swagger without being assholes, but we would just be the 4 guys or 3 guys later in a career who would shamble on the stage and play the songs and have a laugh with each other. Yeah. And maybe if we had a little bit more swagger about it, we might have
things may have been different.
Things may be different, but
that's just the way we were, though. You know.
And with what was Mercury? I mean, why did you pick for Mercury Vertigo over the other labels?
They were dithering. Some of them were dithering. Mercury had a big bunch of money on the table and saying, we'll sign you now, and we were getting advice from our lawyer in Kilkenny, who was saying, "You never know. Somebody else, some of these other guys might just pull out and not bother with a deal. You have a cast iron concrete contract for 6 albums on the table. If I were you guys, I'd sign it." And we went, "Okay."
Around the same time that you signed with Mercury, My Little Funhouse signed with Geffen. Obviously, 2 bands signing with 2 major American record labels from the same place. I mean, was there something about Kilkenny at that time that fostered musicians more so than elsewhere in Ireland?
It's hard to say if Kilkenny fostered musicians more than elsewhere in Ireland, but all we were aware of in our own hermetically sealed little musical world was Kilkenny was very, very vibrant. Very vibrant. Because Kilkenny used to be on the circuit, like bands like Therapy would come and play, bands would come over to Britain and play, and they might do a gig in Kilkenny, Cork and Galway, and that's the way it was because there was such a very vibrant scene. Ironically, we didn't even know, Kilkenny's a small town, but we didn't even know the guys in My Little Funhouse. We didn't hang out together, we were not part of the same scene at all. They signed to Geffen completely independent of us having gotten signed to Mercury Records. It was a totally different thing, but they all happened within months of each other, which is quite bizarre from a small town in the southeast of Ireland.
I think what Kilkenny had going for it is that it had and still has a proper music venue that's on the circuit. Back then it was the New Park Inn, and you would have the Whipping Boy and Therapy, as Cormac is saying. Now it's changed a little bit. It's more on the All Country Music Centre, and a lot of the folky acts would play in Clears, which not quite my thing, but it's still great for the town to have that type of thing going on.
It's been alleged that My Little Funhouse signed for Geffen under the auspice that they were the next Guns N' Roses. Did Mercury ever say to you that they thought you could be the next such and such? Was that ever mentioned to you? Were you ever compared to?
Yeah, we were initially at the start. You know, they had Metallica as one of their big bands, and they sort of saw our sound certainly as kind of slightly Metallica-esque. And everybody was scrambling around still at the time looking for the next Nirvana as well. So there was a lot of that going on. And, you know, there was certainly Seattle type sound in what we did at the time. So there was a frenzy in our men in major labels who had shitloads of money to spend at the time, looking for the next big thing. And they were being informed by stuff from Seattle, Metallica. And we were kind of a hodgepodge of that sound, but nobody explicitly ever said to us, "You're the next Metallica, you're the next Nirvana, you're the next Pearl Jam, or the next whatever." That never actually happened, but I'm sure they thought that.
So there was never any real pressure on you guys to sound more like a Seattle-based band?
No, there was never any pressure to sound like anybody.
No.
We just did anyway.
Yeah.
When you, in your early days, you said in multiple interviews how hectic your touring schedule was. Given the demands that were put on you, did you actually enjoy it?
I did. I had great fun.
Some of us did more than others, and Colin definitely did certainly more than I did. I think I used to take things a bit too seriously back then.
But you got the pressure on you as well. I mean, inevitably, the spotlight always turns to the singer. So like, Cormac would be getting the good news and the bad news all channeled through him, from the record company, from the manager, from the press, everything. So it was an awful lot of pressure to take.
Yeah, and I'm a fairly soft kind of character, and so in some ways, and the fact that the band, you know, we were doing an awful lot of touring, but we still were not getting to the next level, and because the circus, it's all about timing in music and pop music and rock music and all that kind of stuff. And what we'd done was we brought out what we thought was the right album by the right band at absolutely the wrong time. So that was an awful lot of pressure because we'd incurred huge debts to the record company, which we weren't really that aware of either at the time because we didn't really care because we were still kind of kids. And,
yeah.
That was all kind of hypothetical and theoretical. But there was a point where it came, like, if we don't get a song on Radio 1 in the UK on rotation, the game is up. And, I was feeling that kind of pressure. So I wasn't enjoying it as much as I should have. I should have just kind of went, you know, whatever happens happens. But I'm one of those people who I did find it difficult, yeah, for a lot of it towards the end of it, and yeah.
And when you were working with guys like Brian and Dino, who once produced for Nirvana, did you feel the weight of expectation upon you when you were working with those kind of guys?
Not with his name is Jack actually, but
Jack and Dino.
yeah, he didn't not really. At that point, I still think we were still very green and naive and kind of just taking it. We weren't looking past the end of our nose. We were just enjoying it as it was happening. We didn't have any. And I sort of think our management should have been telling us, with their experience, you know, you guys, you need to take this a bit more seriously, because we weren't taking it seriously enough.
We should have been doing it like we do it now.
Yeah.
Like we do it now. For this gig, we were down in Kilkenny at 9:30 in the morning, belting out songs and getting them done because we have time constraints. We had no discipline back then. We didn't keep an eye on who was spending our money and how much. But again, you know, that's been a 20-year-old being thrust into the music
and it's
business.
part of the experience as well.
Mick Taylor said in a recent documentary, Rolling Stones, that the reason why he left in 1974 when the Stones were at the zenith was that he feared that the lifestyle would eventually succumb to it.
Like Keith Moon.
Yeah, exactly. And given obviously the association between fame at such a young age and self-destruction, is there kind of a part of you that it's somewhat relieved that you didn't become the Nirvana or AC/DC or Guns N' Roses?
Absolutely. You know, it's a double-edged sword. I think it would have been. It's kind of like being. If you said to me you could go back 15 years and sell 50 million albums, I'd go, fuck it, yeah, I'll take a chance at that and see if I can stay out of rehab. But I think ultimately, you know, you see so many bands that do get to a certain level of success, and you know, you don't go home from work from your day job and walk into your house and you're presented with 50 cans of beer, a bottle of vodka, some lad trying to give you drugs. That doesn't happen in normal life, but in a band's life, that's normality. That's what happens every single day, and that's why bands fall by the wayside, become alcoholics, become drug addicts, die, and all that kind of stuff. It's just a bizarre, it's a mad world. Where does that happen? Only in that world.
So, in your opinion, it's because Vice is so much more freely available when you're a rock star that these guys essentially self-destruct.
It's the norm.
It's all put in front of them.
You go into any job, and eventually, if you do settle into it, you will conform to the norm in that office, in that college, in that school, in that industry. The norm in an accountant's firm is you go in with a suit and you might go for a couple of pints on the way home on a Friday. The norm in rock and roll is you play a gig and then you drink as much beer and vodka and alcohol as they'll throw at you for the night after it. That's the norm, and that's why people slot into it.
And stay up, yeah, and just, you know, so you'll be, death is always it's always around the corner if you're in a band, yeah.
With the internet and social media now, we're so much more aware of how many aspiring bands there are. Given that Curb Dog signed with a major label, work with some of the biggest names in the business, rub shoulders with the likes of R.E.M. You obviously occupy, or whoever you like, but you obviously occupy a very, very small percentile of bands to achieve that level of success. So, given that, do you kind of consider that your time with Curb Dog was well spent and that you were overall a significant success?
It depends how you define success. If you define success as having, you know, 5 or 6 years of experiences that 99.999999 people will never ever get to experience, yes, absolutely, we succeeded on every level. But if success is about selling millions of records and setting yourself up in a career in music, we didn't succeed in that way. But I feel if we had to pick one or the other, I'd say we did succeed. We had a great time exploring this whole world and living in and getting to do to experience things that otherwise would never ever would have happened. Selling 10 million records would have helped, but hey, you can't have it all.
Great. When you kind of first, not when you were first, but when you were on the scene in the early to mid 90s, at the time in Britain and Ireland, that music scene was, I think you probably agree, was primarily dominated by indie rock bands.
Yeah.
Was it hard being an alternative band in a scene that was dominated by bands that wanted to sound like Oasis or Blur?
Yes, it was. It was.
Yeah.
It was virtually impossible.
I mean, the big thing, the most important people in the music industry in Britain back in 95, 96 when we were living there, and that's where we were primarily trying to break and where our record company was based. You had to be in with Radio 1, you had to be in with the NME. They were the two things. And if you hadn't broken into those key players, you were going nowhere. And we personally tried so hard to knock on those doors and get them opened, and it just didn't happen. We got on well personally with those people, but a lot of them would have said, hey, we like you guys, we like your band, but it's not what people are buying.
It's the wrong time.
Are buying now, and that's it.
It's
Wrong
not the
place,
story.
wrong time.
Blur and Oasis and Pulp were the story at the time. So, and unfortunately, that was just the way it worked out.
Some people say that they were born in the wrong time. Do you guys ever feel that maybe you were born in the wrong continent? That you that had you been born in the United States, had you been born in Washington State in Seattle, that Curb Dog could have been
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. We didn't get to explore the American thing as much as we would have liked. But who knows? America's a big place, and it's not a matter of just going over and saying, hey, here we are, let's entertain us. Sorry, it's a joke. I don't know. It's hard to know. There's so many ifs, buts, whats, and hypotheticals. You said there was 3 stars that needed to align. One was, a good record, a good band, and to be in the right place at the right time. That one didn't. That one wasn't shining for us, unfortunately.
But is it fair to say that you and your sound resonated in relative terms quite well with an American audience as opposed to other bands from Britain and Ireland, to the indie bands who just couldn't?
Yeah, no, that is true.
I think it would have if
yeah.
we had the opportunity there, but it just didn't present itself. We had a UK label focused on the UK. That was it.
Mainly, we didn't play a huge amount in America, and much to our kind of disappointment. And we used to push it all the time with our management, but I don't know. There was some kind of politics, a lot of politics and dark Machiavellian things that happened that we never really understood what was going on.
So would you say there was short-sightedness on the part of the label?
I guess so, but like the label at that point had spent about $1.5 million on us in sterling in 1997. That's an awful lot of money. So they had a choice whether to go, we stick another £1 million into this band or we cut our losses. And unfortunately, maybe fortunately for our lives, they said we'll cut our losses. And that was it.
In 97, it was an intro for your second album. You said that you felt you were on the brink. So what happened?
What happened was, our label had decided at some point that, well, basically the album had cost £500,000 to make, went massively over budget. So the label at this stage had probably whispering saying, I don't know if we're ever going to see this money back. So when it came to promoting this album, it wasn't promoted very well at all, and they virtually just put it out on the shelves in the shops to fulfill a contract, and then they dropped us, and that was it. So we were on the brink, but I think we genuinely were on the brink, but we were pulled back from it very quickly. And such is life. That's the way it is.
I know you all have your separate lives and you've gone on to different careers, and you described this performance as sort of a lap of honour, but given what you've experienced with Curb Dog in the 90s and also you with Wilt, are you ever tempted just to make another go with all the experience and hindsight you now have?
To be honest, no, because I feel that this for a number of reasons. Any bands that I know that I really liked when they were making records when it was all that mattered to them, and then they try and do something then 20 years later. I'm always, most of the time, disappointed. And I think, you know, our lives as well. There's 7 or 8 kids in our. I can't remember how many kids we have between the 3 of us now, and it would just be irresponsible, stroke unrealistic, and madness to go off and try and do that again, unless someone like Geffen Records and gave it handed us £15 million in cash, then we would consider it. But if that's quite unlikely.
No.
It had to be 15 million though, wouldn't it?
Definitely.
Up front.
Yeah. No strings attached.
No strings attached.
Full creative freedom.
Yeah, and that would be it. That would be it. So until that happens, no, it won't. It's not going to happen.
That's my last question. There was a California-based band in the 60s and 70s called Love.
Yeah.
And in their time, they never really achieved any real success. Their albums, I don't think, ever really bridged the top 100 US charts. But a few years ago, Rolling Stone released an article citing, in their opinion, the 50 best albums of all time, and Love's 1968 Forever Changes came in at number 40. So Love have received incredible recognition and acclaim.
Retrospectively.
As has Curb Dog to a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that kind of fills you with pride, or maybe even a kind of degree of frustration that we're kind of getting the acclaim and recognition after the event?
I wouldn't say it fills us with kind of pain or anything. It's more like we're fucking right now. At least we know now that the album came out. We could play it to 2 Men and a Dog, and that was it. And the album has been passed on the turn, particularly through brothers, sisters, and whatever, handing it around, and people have liked it. We've never played to as many people before in our lives. You know, if we kept going like this, which is highly unlikely, by the time we're about 60, we'd be playing Slane Castle. So it's kind of posthumous success. The band is dead, really, in any real sense. But this is kind of like Victory Lap sounds kind of arrogant, but it's a bit more. We're feeling the buzz of what we should have felt when the album came out in the first place, because there was nothing like playing in front of 800 people for a record that sort of feels like it came out yesterday when you do these kind of gigs. So am I bitter? No. Disappointed a little bit. Any regrets? A few. Otherwise, happy enough.
Yeah.
How about you?
No, I mean, what's great about this time is there's no pressure. You know, we come along, we plug in and play, we have a couple of beers, and it's great. You know, we're not worried about what are the enemy going to say in the morning, what's the chart position, what did the record company say. It's just go, play, enjoy yourself. The fans love it, we love it. It's a very hard thing to give up doing.
Yeah.
Even though we know a time is going to come when we're going to say, crap, we should have quit a month ago.
Yeah, we gotta stop.
But for us now, it's let's enjoy it. The fans enjoy it, we enjoy it, and let's hopefully quit when the time is right.
That's it.